This week on the Hollywood and Toto podcast, Stephen Colbert reaches a new level of cringe spinning for Joe Biden. Bad Boys Ride or Die is a big hit at the box office, and it absolutely destroys what we've all come to know about Will Smith. And another artist tells his audience to buzz off, beat it, scram. You'll find out more in a minute.
Welcome to the Hollywood and Toto podcast. Entertainment news and reviews without the woke Hollywood narrative. Free speech, free expression. Now that's entertainment. And here's your host, award-winning film critic, Christian Toto.
Before we begin, I'd love it if you'd subscribe to the Hollywood and Toto podcast if you're listening on an audio platform, or if you're on YouTube, give it a like, maybe a subscribe there as well. And if you're feeling a little bit bold and ambitious, I'd love a 5-star review over at iTunes if you think the content is worth that rating. Every bit helps, and we appreciate it. This is the very opposite of breaking news. Stephen Colbert leans to the left, and so does his Late Show. I know. Wow, that's amazing. It's an absolute dog bites man story. But it's getting worse. It's getting embarrassing. And the cringe is just off the charts. Now, listen, we all know that Stephen Colbert does everything possible to avoid poking fun at Joe Biden. Yeah, he'll throw a he's old joke at us once in a while, but that's mostly it. He really pulls his punches. But what he did just a few days ago is not pulling punches. It's absolute spin. It's embarrassing spin. And it's the kind of spin that tells his audience, I don't care about you. I don't care about the truth. I've got a job to do. Now, I guess the only question remaining at this point is he getting checks from the DNC, or is he doing this pro bono? I just don't know. I'd have to check his banking account to find out for sure, but it is really getting bad. Now, again, the whole late night landscape leans to the left. We know this. We've seen this. It's exhausting. And it's really the whole truth to power mantra that we've been told for years and years just goes out the window when you see things like this happening. But Colbert just takes it to a new level almost every week at this point. And, listen, what could he do? Joe Biden is a compromised individual, ethically, morally, certainly politically at this point, and he's old. And it's not just that he's old, because my mom is 82, and we could have great conversations, and she doesn't slur her words, she doesn't mix up main facts, she does none of the things that Joe Biden does, and he happens to be president. So recently, a Wall Street Journal report came out, and it was rather shocking, even given all we know about Biden. It said, behind the scenes, Joe Biden is slipping. And then it brings the receipts. It shows you again and again and again through first-person testimonies how much slippage is going on. It's rather shocking. I mean, we see it in the public, but when we're behind closed doors, when the work of the government has to get done, he's not getting it done. He can barely think straight. He needs cards to kind of find out what's going on. It's really tough to listen to, for sure. Now, that story came out, and of course, once again, the media mostly ignored it because it's too problematic to do anything else to it. But what Stephen Colbert did was just worse.
Doors, Biden shows signs of slipping unless they had the receipts. But according to the Journal, when the president of the United States was running meetings, he appeared to rely on notes and always had cards. Chilling. I mean, if someone was leading a large organization and they had to check their notes, that would certainly give me... Pause.
But what he does is he just cherry picks the truth. He takes little pieces of the story that seem innocuous without the context to show you that, they just made things up. Biden's perfectly fine. He's just an older gentleman who might be a little bit more cautious, who might speak in different cadences. It's absolute spin. It's absolutely embarrassing. And it's on CBS. Now, again, we're used to the He leans to the left. He mocks Trump. That is what we've come to know for the last few years. It's just the state of being. And, you can enjoy it, you can watch it, you can turn away, you can say, you know what, he's not really telling me the full story, so I'm not interested. And I think that's what most people have come away with at this point. I even wonder how many liberals are going to stick around given what he does and given what he says, but he's got his audience and that's enough. But this is different. And this is actually insulting to the Wall Street Journal reporters who crafted that story. I wonder what they think about what Colbert said. Did they hear about it? I'd love to get their reaction. That would be fascinating. So what Stephen Colbert now does is he doesn't just ignore problematic stories that may hurt the Democrats. He doesn't just ignore Biden's flubs and gaffes and all the terrible things we see in the public sphere. It's not that. Now he's taking reality and warping it, twisting it, contorting it to make his fans clap in the audience. And they did just that. Now, when you watch the full clip and it's on YouTube, you don't get a sense that this is really funny per se. It's more about setting a narrative in place. Don't trust your eyes. Don't trust your ears. Don't trust those clips you see. President Biden is just fine. And the one thing that's fascinating about it is that Stephen Colbert is working very hard to make you think this. You watch the segment and you can see how much comic energy he's bringing to the performance. And at the end of the day, Stephen Colbert has talent. He knows how to deliver a punchline. He knows how to use his body language to tell a joke, to push it over the edge and make it from funny to funnier in theory. But that's not really his purpose now. His purpose is to tell his audience they're not seeing what they're actually seeing. No. Don't trust the media at all in this situation. They're lying to you. And yet we all know they're not in this case. Now, the media lies all day long. The media is corrupt. The Wall Street Journal maybe less so. It's certainly right of center in its editorial pages, but I think its news coverage is probably either down the middle or maybe even a little bit left of center. This was probably not an easy story to write, nor an easy story to research. But they got a whole bunch of really damning information here. What do you do with it? Well, you turn to Stephen Colbert. He's got it. Back up, guys. On me. I'll take care of this. It's exactly what he did. And I have to say, I just, at some point, even his loyal viewers, even those people who are rock-ribbed progressives, who want to see him smash and destroy and do all the things to President Trump, we get that. I understand that. But at some point, don't they want the truth? Don't they want someone to tell it like it is? Don't they want someone in the great Mark Twain tradition to share what's going on with some comic mojo behind it? Well, his ratings are still fine. They're nowhere near what the Johnny Carson days brought us, but looks like they're perfectly fine right now to rage against Trump and to ignore the truth. And Stephen Colbert is only too happy to oblige them. It's not remotely funny. Remember the slap? I mean, how could you not remember the slap? I think it's about 2 or so years ago where Will Smith was in the audience at the Oscars. Chris Rock was telling a joke. He mentioned Will Smith's wife, Jada Pinkett Smith, mentioned her bald head, which he didn't realize had a medical condition attached to it. And Will Smith didn't take kindly to the jab. And of course, we all know what happened next. But what happened after that was even more fascinating in a way, because Will Smith was one of the biggest movie stars in the world. Talent, charisma, charm, you name it, he had it. And all of a sudden, his career was essentially in free fall. What would happen next? Would Hollywood hire him? Would the public forgive him? What kind of roles could he do now moving forward? Could we get the image of that slap out of our minds? And I could still see it right now. I just close my eyes and envision it. It was that powerful. It was that unexpected. It was maybe the only time in the last 20 years that the Oscars were worth watching, at least from a train wreck point of view. It was surreal, to say the very least. And there are still some people who think it was fake. It didn't happen. I can't even imagine that, but everyone has a take on things. But The bigger question for Hollywood was, is his career over? Will audiences still go to see a Will Smith movie? Now, shortly after that incident happened, he made Emancipation, which was an Apple TV production. It was about slavery, serious, sober, Oscar-minded for sure, but it didn't really have any sort of pop culture cachet. And it also missed the awards season entirely, a swing and a miss, I guess you could say. But that wasn't really a Will Smith movie per se. He is not making those movies regularly. He's more of a movie star. He's trying to do blockbusters. That's what he does best. So when Bad Boys Ride or Die came out just recently, we thought, well, here is the true test. Will audiences go back to see him in a mainstream action comedy based on one of his beloved brands? And the answer apparently is yeah. The movie made $56 million in its opening weekend, which is very solid. Not huge, but very solid. It also says that, hey, all those articles in the press about how audiences have gotten out of the habit of going to the movies. Well, if you put a movie that they're interested in, they'll get back in the habit rather quickly. But of course, the bigger issue is Will Smith. We've forgiven him to a certain extent. Now, I've been doing some digging on social media and kind of sending out some feelers. Do you individually forgive Will Smith? And I have to say, many people are in the no camp. They can't get over it, at least not yet. It's still stuck in their mind. It still has changed what they think about Will Smith, maybe permanently. And I understand that. It was an awful act. And the fact that he didn't apologize immediately, and remember, he had the ultimate way to do so because after the slap, maybe a half hour or so later, he came back on stage to accept his Best Actor Oscar for King Richard. That's the moment where he interrupts everything and says, I can't believe I just did that. That's one of the worst things I've ever done. I'm so sorry to Chris Rock and to everyone watching at home. Thank you for this Oscar, but boy, I've really tainted the experience. How could I have done that? I've got to think long and hard why I came to this point in my life where I would slap someone for telling a dumb joke. But he didn't do that. So for many people, they're not ready to forgive. And again, I accept that. I understand that. It's up to every individual person to figure out if this is a movie star that's worth their while. But clearly, it's a Bad Boys film. He's paired again with Martin Lawrence, and people want to see him. Now, again, it's subjective, but enough people did it to make $56 million at the box office. So we'll have to see if the movie has legs. I think it will because it's not woke. It is entertaining. It is fun. It is exactly the kind of summer movie we're looking for. But moving forward, I think this opens up some opportunities for Will Smith. Keep being positive. Keep making good movies. Don't do anything to rock the boat again. Keep your brand foremost in mind. And still be conciliatory. Still understand that some people will not forgive you. And don't just dismiss this as something that's in the past. Because for many people, it is not. But, I also think this story really intersects with cancel culture. Because cancel culture often punishes people and doesn't have a road for forgiveness. Doesn't say, hey, you've done your time. You can come back. You can start making movies. You can start doing what you do so well. And I think for some, like Roseanne Barr, they're never forgiven. The cancel culture community, which intersects directly with Hollywood, they haven't hired her again. She hasn't been popping up in sitcoms. She wasn't given an HBO comedy special. She's done in their eyes for that one awful racially charged tweet. Again, not defending that tweet. That was really dumb, really vicious. But she did apologize, and it was just one tweet. And if you look into her past, I don't believe there's anything that she's had any animosity towards Black people. Matter of fact, she has said, and Norm Macdonald backed her up, that when she was creating the writing rooms for Roseanne, she would actively recruit minority writers to be on the show, to work on the show. What's more important, being a position of power and hiring people of color, or one really terrible tweet? What changes the world? What makes a difference? Well, we all know that. But cancel culture won't forgive her. That's for sure. And the fact that she's been conspiratorial at times, she's been pro-Trump at times, she's been rocking the boat often, and just speaking her mind. I don't think she's ever coming back to Hollywood Inc. But you know what? She's got a podcast. She's worked with Fox Nation. She has a voice on the Daily Wire Plus show, Mr. Bertram. She's doing okay. She's creating her own career on her own terms. But she has been forgiven by the public just not cancel culture. And I think the same is true with Will Smith. I think in certain ways, cancel culture will never forgive him and expect him to be punished in perpetuity. But audiences, they like his charm, they like his style, they like his movies. And Bad Boys Ride or Die proves it all over again. He's back. You may not like it, but that's the way it is. Okay, raise your hand if you know the name Eric Kripke. I gotta say, I didn't. I think I may have heard it once or twice. He's the showrunner behind The Boys. That's that dark, satirical superhero show that's on Amazon. I guess they call it Prime Video now. And it's coming back for a fourth season very soon. Now, of course, he's talking to the press about the show, what you can expect. He's pumping it up, and it's perfectly fine. He's doing the promotional thing. That's what actors and celebrities do to make people interested in their projects. But he's also talking about some of the fan blowback to the series. Now, I watched it since season one, really enjoyed it, thought it was dark and interesting, and had a clever spin on the whole superhero genre that you need because we've seen so many superhero films and TV shows at this point. You got to shake up the formula a bit. But he's also been steering the film in a decidedly left of center nature. And again, that's okay, but I find it rather clumsy. It's very heavy handed. You can watch a lot of different programs where you can see the messaging or even sense the themes that are going on. And that can often make it a very rich presentation. I don't have to agree with things, but when you have different layers of a story, it makes it more compelling. But I don't think he's doing that with The Boys. I think it's more obvious. I think it's more blunt force trauma, as it were. And of course, people are rejecting it. Not everyone. It's still a popular show, but some people don't like that. And so what Eric said about that whole phenomenon was, go watch something else. And I find that fascinating because he's not the only person who has said that. There have been supporters of Doctor Who. There have been supporters of Star Wars who have essentially said the same thing. Buzz off. If you don't like us, go away. I mean, what kind of messaging is that? What kind of promotion is that? We're living in a time where Hollywood is in real trouble. Streaming platforms are struggling to get subscribers. They're losing tons of money. Paramount is scrambling to find some sort of deal to get them out of their financial morass. There's so much going wrong right now. We just mentioned Bad Boys Ride or Die, which is doing well, but a lot of the summer films aren't doing well. Fall Guy, Furiosa, they're not tanking, but they're underperforming in a way that should scare Hollywood silly. And I think Hollywood is scared silly. And you have these pockets of individuals who just don't get it, who can't be diplomatic, who are angry at those who critique their work, and don't have the sense to understand that you could deal with that in a different way. You could accept the criticism. You could say, some people don't agree with where we're taking the show. But, I've got a vision. I think this is a compelling way to tell the story. And if you don't like it, I understand, but maybe stick around. You might be surprised by what we have in store for you in season 4. What's wrong with that? But there's still this arrogance in Hollywood, and it's carrying over from I guess you could say from the Trump era, where creators just didn't mind insulting us, didn't mind saying, go away, didn't mind saying, these are my beliefs. If you have other beliefs, well, the hell with you. And that was the attitude for quite some time. But if you're noticing recently, there is a change. This is an election year. It's Biden versus Trump again. You're not seeing as much vitriol, as much outward messaging about the election as I think you expected, certainly not what I expected. And I think the biggest tell that we've seen is the award show circuit. In the last maybe year or two, we've seen multiple shows, the Golden Globes, the Grammys, the Oscars, of course, and they've become much, much less political, less lectures, less speechifying, less, eschewing comedy for talking points. Well, why is that? Well, it's not an accident. Someone just didn't flip a switch. It's because the industry understands they're in trouble. The industry understands they can't keep pushing large segments of the population away. They just can't. It's not in their economic best interest. The Biden economy, the fact that technology is changing, the rise of AI, Hollywood knows it's in a very delicate position when it comes to the near future and the bigger future. And yet there are still individuals, there are still artists who say, screw you. I don't care if you watch my show or not. I'm going to do what I want to do. And the irony of it all is, why is Eric Kripke even sharing that message? Because he's on the promotional circuit, because he's trying to get people to tune in to The Boys season 4. That's why he's talking to the press. It's not like he was bored one day and said, let me ring up the Hollywood Reporter and just have a chat with one of their reporters and just see what's going on. Just I missed talking to them. No, he's doing it for a reason. And that's the reason. And now he's going to push some people away. And of course, this fuels people like Critical Drinker, The Quartering, Nerdrotic, and I don't blame them. How could you not respond to something like that? So, we've seen Doctor Who's ratings collapse in recent years while they've been pushing people away, while they've been being arrogant, while they're telling people to buzz off. Will it happen to The Boys? Well, we'll have to wait and see. But we already know that The Boys is ending after season 5, so maybe the ratings haven't been as good as we've been told. Maybe Eric Kripke understands the ride is almost over, and maybe he can afford to insult fans, to tell them to go away. But I don't think Prime Video wants that to happen. And I wonder if they're going to be calling up Eric and saying, hey, could you tone down the rhetoric? I mean, they don't have to, but if I were an executive working for Prime Video and I heard him spouting off like that, I might have a chat with him and just kind of educate him on the glories of being more positive and uplifting when it comes to your messaging. Because I think that would draw more eyeballs, get more people's attention, and maybe just be a small step towards saving Hollywood from what happens next, because it could get ugly. That's it for the show this week. Thank you again to Radio America for having me as part of their great podcast lineup. And again, we are now on YouTube and Rumble. Hope you'll be checking us out there. And while I have your attention, please check out HollywoodInToto.com. This is its 10th-year anniversary, started the site in August of 2014. It is like the show, the right take on entertainment. No woke, just honest conversations about Hollywood. We don't hate movies. We love movies. And we love the actors who make them. But we don't like it when they insult us, and we don't like it when they lecture us. So we put those things aside. I think we'll all get along just fine. Hope you'll like this show on YouTube. Hope you'll subscribe on iTunes or your favorite podcast platform. And we will see you next time.